It was one of the coldest mornings of the year when Officer Mark Jensen opened his cabin door and froze in shock. Standing in the snow was his K-9 partner, Rex. But this time, Rex wasn't alone. In his mouth, the loyal German shepherd carried a tiny frozen puppy. Snowflakes clung to the pup's fur, its body barely moving. Mark's pulse raced. For a moment he thought Rex had found a lifeless stray, but then Rex whimpered, nudging the little body toward him as if pleading, "Help it!" Where had Rex found it? And why had he risked everything in the storm to bring it home? What happened next would lead to a discovery no one could have imagined, a story that would melt hearts all over the world. The wind howled through the pine trees, rattling the cabin windows like ghostly whispers. Snow fell in thick sheets, turning the forest into a blur of white. Inside, the fire crackled softly, casting an orange glow across the walls. Officer Mark Jensen sat beside it, his badge glinting in the light. Rex lay near the hearth, ears twitching with every rumble of thunder. It was supposed to be a peaceful night, Mark's first evening off duty in weeks, but the storm outside felt different. The air carried a tension that made even the bravest hearts uneasy. Mark set his coffee on the table and leaned back, listening to the rhythm of the wind. That was when Rex suddenly lifted his head. The dog's body stiffened, eyes locked on the door. "What is it, boy?" Mark asked quietly. Rex didn't move. His tail lowered, muscles coiled. A second later, a low growl rolled from his throat. Mark frowned. The storm's sound shifted, and he heard it too, a faint scratching, barely audible over the wind, but real. He grabbed his flashlight and moved toward the door. The scratching grew louder, frantic now, as if something was clawing for help. Rex barked once, sharp and commanding. Mark unlatched the door, and a blast of icy air slammed into him, throwing snow across the floorboards. "Hello?" he shouted, but his voice disappeared into the storm. The porch light flickered, revealing only swirling snow. Rex lunged forward, barking into the dark. Mark saw nothing, just endless white, then Rex dashed out into the blizzard. "Rex! Come back!" Mark yelled, stepping outside, but the dog vanished into the storm. Snow swallowed his boots. Wind bit at his face. The flashlight beam cut only a few feet ahead. "Rex!" he called again. Nothing. Panic began to rise. Rex had never run off before. Minutes passed. Then faintly through the roar of the wind came a single bark. Mark turned toward the sound. Somewhere out there, Rex was trying to tell him something. The storm was merciless, but Mark kept calling. The seconds dragged until another bark, louder, closer, echoed through the whiteout. A dark shape appeared in the distance, stumbling through the snow. "Rex!" he shouted again. The figure grew clearer. The K-9, drenched and trembling, eyes fierce even through exhaustion. But something hung from his mouth, something small and limp. As Rex neared the porch light, Mark's heart stopped. It wasn't a branch. It wasn't a toy. It was a puppy, frozen, barely breathing. Rex climbed the steps, his body shaking, and laid the tiny creature at Mark's feet before looking up, eyes pleading for help. Mark dropped to his knees. "Good boy. Come on, buddy," he whispered, opening the door wide. Warm air rushed out to meet them as man and dog stepped inside. The storm raging behind. The cabin door slammed shut behind them, locking out the storm's roar. Inside, the fire flickered brighter as if sensing the urgency in the room. Rex stood by the hearth, his body trembling from the cold, eyes fixed on the lifeless pup on the floor. Mark knelt beside it. "Oh, my God," he whispered. The puppy's fur was stiff with ice, its tiny chest barely rising. He pulled off his gloves and pressed 2 fingers to its side. No movement, no heartbeat. For a moment, helplessness flooded him. But then Rex let out a low whine, nudging the pup gently with his nose, refusing to give up. The message was clear. Do something. Mark snapped back into focus. "All right, boy. We're not losing this one." He grabbed a towel, wrapping the small body tightly, then placed it near the fireplace. "Stay with me, little one," he murmured, rubbing the pup's sides in small circles to bring back warmth. Rex sat close, watching every move, his eyes wide with worry. The fire crackled, casting gold light over them. Outside, the blizzard screamed. But inside, the only sounds were Mark's hurried breathing and Rex's soft whimpers. Mark dipped a cloth in warm water and patted the puppy's paws and chest gently. "Come on, fight," he whispered, his voice breaking. "Don't stop now." Minutes crawled by, nothing. The air felt heavy with silence. Mark's hands ached from rubbing, but he didn't stop. He remembered something from his medic training. Never lose rhythm. Keep warmth steady. He alternated between rubbing and rapping, his mind counting each second. Rex leaned closer, pressing his warm body against the pup, sharing his heat without hesitation. Mark looked at him with tears in his eyes. "You're a better nurse than me, partner." Still there was no response. Mark clenched his jaw and leaned closer to the puppy's nose. "Come on," he whispered again. "You've come this far. Don't give up." Then so faint he almost missed it, a twitch. A paw moved. Mark froze, staring. "Rex, did you see that?" The German shepherd barked softly, tail wagging once, another twitch, then a faint broken sound escaped the pup's throat. A weak cry, barely there. Mark's chest tightened as relief crashed through him like lightning. "That's it. Come on, little one," he urged, his voice trembling. He rubbed faster, heart racing as color returned to the puppy's ears. Rex licked the pup's face, whining softly. The little body shuddered, and then another sound, stronger this time. Mark laughed through tears. "Good boy, Rex, you did it. You saved him." He reached for a small bowl, poured a bit of warm milk, and dipped his fingers in. The puppy's tiny tongue flicked weakly, licking a drop. Then another. Rex laid down beside them both, his head resting near the towel, eyes never leaving the puppy. Outside, the blizzard still raged, but inside the cabin, a miracle was quietly unfolding. One faint heartbeat at a time, Mark leaned back, exhausted but smiling. He reached out and placed a hand on Rex's head. "You knew, didn't you?" he whispered. "You always know." Rex closed his eyes and sighed deeply, the firelight flickering across his fur, and for the first time that night, hope filled the room. The next morning arrived slowly, wrapped in silence. The storm had calmed, but the world outside was buried in snow. Inside the cabin, warmth and life had returned. The tiny puppy slept soundly on a towel near the fire, its chest rising in steady rhythm. Rex lay beside it like a proud guardian, his eyes half open but alert. Mark stretched, feeling the ache in his shoulders from the long night. He smiled as he looked at them. "You did good, boy," he whispered. Better than anyone could have asked for, but Rex didn't relax. The moment Mark stood, the dog lifted his head and looked toward the door. His ears twitched. His body stiffened again. Mark frowned. "What is it now?" Rex gave a short whine, walked to the door and scratched at it. "You want to go back out there?" Mark asked. The thought made his stomach twist. The storm might have eased, but the cold outside was deadly. Still, something about Rex's behavior was different. This wasn't curiosity. This was purpose. Mark sighed, grabbed his coat, and glanced back at the puppy sleeping by the fire. "All right," he said softly. "But just for a minute." Rex barked once, short and certain. The door creaked open. Cold air swept in, sharp and biting. The forest outside glittered under pale sunlight. Snow covered everything in endless white, but across that surface ran a trail of paw prints, Rex's from the night before. Mark followed carefully, his boots crunching on the frozen ground. Rex trotted ahead, nose low, tail stiff with focus. The world was quiet except for the soft sound of their steps. Then Rex stopped. His head turned sharply toward a cluster of pine trees where the snow looked disturbed. Mark's heart thumped faster. He crouched beside his partner and brushed away the snow with his gloved hands. Beneath the surface was a hollow, small, like a den. "Oh no," he whispered. Inside, faint outlines took shape. Tiny bodies curled together. 3 puppies, and beside them a larger shape frozen still. The mother dog. Rex whimpered, pressing his nose against the snow as if he already knew. Mark swallowed hard. "You tried to save them, didn't you?" he said quietly. He brushed more snow aside, revealing the sad, frozen scene. A mother who had shielded her babies from the cold until her last breath. Then, suddenly, one of the small bodies twitched. Barely noticeable, but it moved. Mark's instincts kicked in. He reached down, scooped the weak pup into his arms and wrapped it inside his coat. "Hang on, little one," he whispered. "You're not done yet." Rex circled him anxiously, then turned toward the forest again. His eyes met Mark's, sharp, urgent. "You think there's more?" Mark asked. Rex barked once and bolted ahead. "Go!" Mark shouted, clutching the tiny life to his chest as he followed. Snow whipped around him, but he didn't stop. He could hear Rex barking somewhere ahead, fast, focused, desperate. When Mark reached him, the sight froze him in place. Rex was digging near a fallen tree, his paws flying through the snow. Mark dropped to his knees beside him, helping with his bare hands. Together, man and dog uncovered another small puppy, motionless and pale. Mark pressed both pups close to his chest, wrapping them in his coat to share what warmth he could. "Please stay with me," he whispered. Rex barked again, then looked back toward the den, checking, searching, refusing to rest. Mark looked down at the frozen mother one last time. Her eyes were half open, peaceful, still guarding the space that had been her home. "You did your best," he whispered. "We'll take it from here." Rex pressed his head against Mark's shoulder, quiet and understanding. Together, they stood in the cold, one man, one dog, and two fragile lives clinging to warmth. Before turning back toward the long, snowy path home, the wind rose again, howling through the forest like a living thing. Mark pulled his jacket tighter, clutching the two tiny pups against his chest. Their fragile bodies trembled beneath the warmth of his coat. "Stay with me," he whispered, his breath fogging in the cold air. Rex trotted ahead, leading the way through the deep snow. His fur was soaked, his paws raw, but he didn't slow down. Every few steps, he turned back to check on Mark, his golden eyes bright with determination. "Keep going, boy," Mark called out, though his voice was nearly swallowed by the wind. "We're almost there." The snow made every step a battle. It clung to his legs, heavy and unyielding. The world around him had vanished into endless white. There were no landmarks now, just cold, wind, and survival. Mark's flashlight flickered weakly, its beam slicing through the storm like a dying flame. He tried to focus on Rex's dark shape ahead, the only moving thing in the blizzard. Minutes felt like hours. His muscles burned. His breath came out in clouds of frost. He could feel the pup's faint heartbeats through his coat, so weak, so fragile. He stumbled once, falling to one knee. The snow bit into his skin. For a second, everything went silent, except the pounding of his heart. Rex barked sharply, circling back. His breath puffed out in white bursts as he nudged Mark's shoulder. "I'm okay," Mark muttered, forcing himself up. "Not stopping now." Rex gave a short bark, then started forward again, his tail a beacon in the storm. Mark followed, his steps slow but steady. The image of the frozen mother dog burned in his mind. "You gave everything for them," he thought. "I won't let it be for nothing." The storm screamed around them, fierce and merciless. The cold cut through his gloves. His body shook, but he held the puppies close, refusing to let go. Then, through the blinding white, he saw it, a faint orange glow flickering in the distance. The cabin. Adrenaline surged through him. "There it is, Rex, go!" Rex sprinted forward, barking with renewed strength. The glow grew brighter until the outline of the cabin finally appeared, warm, safe, real. Mark stumbled up the steps, nearly falling as he shoved the door open. A wave of heat hit him as the storm's roar was replaced by silence and the crackle of fire. He dropped to his knees beside the hearth, unwrapping the pups and placing them near the fire's warmth. "Come on, little ones," he said softly, rubbing their sides. "You made it this far. Don't stop now." Rex immediately lay beside them, curling his body around the pups to share his heat. His fur steamed in the firelight, but he didn't move. Mark worked quickly, drying the pups with a towel, rubbing their paws, checking their breathing. His hands trembled, but his focus never broke. "We're not losing anyone tonight," he whispered. Minutes dragged by. The fire crackled louder, filling the room with orange light. One of the pups twitched, a small, almost invisible movement. Then another tiny sound followed, a weak squeak, barely audible. Mark froze. "That's it," he breathed. "That's it, little fighter." Rex wagged his tail once, cautious but hopeful. The second pup shuddered, letting out a faint cry. Mark's chest tightened with relief. "You did it," he whispered, eyes glistening. "You're safe now." He dipped his fingers into a small bowl of warm milk and offered a few drops to the weakest pup. Its tongue flicked out slowly, then again, stronger. Rex's tail thumped softly against the rug. He rested his chin near the pups and sighed deeply, content and tired. Mark smiled, resting his hand on Rex's back. "You brought them home, partner. You saved them all." The storm still raged outside, but inside the little cabin, life had won again. The fire glowed bright. The puppies breathed softly, and the bond between a man and his dog had never been stronger. Morning came slowly, soft and golden. Sunlight spilled through the frosted windows, turning the cabin into a painting of warmth and light. The storm was gone, only a world of white calm stretched beyond the glass. Mark rubbed his tired eyes and looked toward the fireplace. 3 tiny puppies lay curled together on a folded towel, their fur dry, warm, and fluffy. Each little chest rose and fell in a peaceful rhythm. Beside them, Rex sat tall and proud, his eyes steady on the small lives he had fought so hard to save. Mark couldn't help but smile. "Look at you, buddy," he said softly. From officer to babysitter in one night, Rex turned his head slightly, giving him that serious, knowing look that said it was worth it. Mark chuckled under his breath. "All right, I get it. We're a team." He went to the kitchen, poured warm milk into a shallow bowl, and carried it back to the fire. Kneeling beside the pups, he dipped his fingers in the milk and offered a few drops to the smallest one. The tiny tongue flicked out, tasting it. Then another pup joined in, nudging for its turn. The sight pulled at Mark's heart. Just hours ago, he had feared this little bundle wouldn't make it through the night. Now life filled the room again, gentle, fragile, but real. "You really are fighters," he whispered. "Just like your mom." He looked toward Rex, who was now lying down near the puppies, letting them climb over his paws. Every time one squeaked, he leaned in and nuzzled it softly, patient as a saint. Mark smiled through a sting of emotion. "You're doing her job now, aren't you?" Outside, sunlight danced on the snow, and the forest looked peaceful for the first time in days. Mark opened the door slightly, letting a rush of cold air in. Rex stood beside him, nose lifted toward the trees. The world glistened, quiet and pure. "She'd be proud of you, Rex," Mark said quietly. "You gave her story a second ending." Rex gave a low whine, as if he understood. Together, they stood on the porch for a long moment, watching the forest sparkle under the morning sun. When they went back inside, the puppies were awake and playful, tumbling over one another, tiny tails wagging. Their joyful squeaks filled the room like music. Mark laughed, kneeling down again. "You 3 have no idea how close it was," he said softly, rubbing one of their heads. "But you're safe now." He sat beside the fire, the warmth touching his face, and reached for his phone. He took a picture. Rex curled around the 3 pups, sunlight flooding in behind them. It was a moment too beautiful not to share. He posted it online with a simple caption. "Last night my K-9 partner came home from a snowstorm carrying a frozen puppy. By morning we had 3 survivors. He didn't just save them. He gave them a second chance." Mark set the phone aside, not expecting much. Maybe a few likes, a few kind comments. But before long, the notifications began. One ping, then another, then dozens. By noon, his phone was vibrating non-stop. The picture had gone viral. People from all over the world were commenting, "Tati, anizisish ditil son." Strangers leaving messages that warmed his heart. "Your dog's a hero." This made me cry. Faith in humanity restored. Bless that beautiful soul. The story spread faster than Mark could read the comments. News pages shared it. Animal shelters reposted it. Even local reporters called the station asking for interviews. He looked up from his buzzing phone and smiled at Rex, who lay sleeping peacefully beside the pups. "You're famous now, buddy," he whispered. Rex lifted his head for a moment, tail wagging once before closing his eyes again, as if to say, "Fame doesn't matter. They're safe. That's what counts." Mark leaned back, letting the warmth of the fire and the soft breathing of the pups fill the cabin. Outside, snowflakes drifted gently from the trees, the last whispers of the storm that had almost taken everything. Inside, surrounded by life, warmth, and love, Mark finally understood. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can echo farther than any storm, and that night, somewhere in the quiet woods, a mother's spirit rested easy, her story completed by a loyal dog, a brave man, and 3 tiny heartbeats that refused to stop. By the next morning, calm skies stretched across the snowy hills. The storm was gone, but something else had begun. A different kind of storm, one made of kindness, love, and awe. Mark's phone buzzed again and again on the table beside his coffee cup. He rubbed his eyes, still half asleep, then finally picked it up. His heart skipped when he saw the numbers. Thousands of notifications, hundreds of new messages, and a single post that had now been shared across the world. The photo of Rex and the 3 rescued puppies had gone viral overnight. The comments poured in faster than he could read them. "Your dog is a hero. This story made me cry. Faith in humanity restored. Please tell Rex he's the best boy ever." Mark scrolled slowly, a smile spreading across his face. People from different countries, different languages, all sharing one emotion: gratitude. It wasn't just a story anymore. It had become hope, traveling from screen to screen, heart to heart. He looked up at Rex lying by the fire, surrounded by the pups, their tiny bodies nestled against his fur. "You did this, buddy," he said softly. "You brought them home, and somehow you brought the world together." Rex lifted his head, ears twitching, then sighed and lay back down. Fame meant nothing to him. His job was simple: protect, love, and stay close. By noon, Mark's police chief called. "Jensen, you've made quite the headlines," he said with a chuckle. "Reporters are asking if they can meet your partner." "I told them the hero's taking a well-deserved nap." Mark laughed. "He's earned it, sir." That afternoon, a local news van pulled up outside the cabin. A reporter in a thick coat smiled as she stepped through the door, camera crew behind her. "We wanted to see the heroes ourselves," she said warmly. Rex looked up curiously as the camera lights blinked on. The reporter crouched beside him, her eyes soft. "Can you tell us what happened that night?" Mark nodded, his voice calm but full of emotion as he told the story. The storm, the scratching at the door, the lifeless puppy, the second rescue, and Rex's unstoppable instinct. When she asked why he thought Rex had risked his life in the blizzard, Mark paused. His gaze fell on the puppies by the fire. "Because he felt something we didn't," he said quietly. "He didn't see just a dying puppy. He saw a life worth saving." The reporter smiled through glassy eyes. "That's beautiful." That evening, the segment aired on national television. Within hours, it became one of the most watched videos online. Families gathered to watch it. People cried, seeing Rex gently nudge the tiny pups closer to the fire. Comments flooded social media. "That dog deserves a medal." "This story made my kids want to volunteer at a shelter." Rex reminded us what real heroes look like. Some even donated money to local animal rescues in Rex's honor. Others shared their own stories of saving stray animals. The kindness kept spreading, like ripples in calm water. Mark sat by the fire that night, scrolling through the messages. "You didn't just save them," he whispered to Rex. "You reminded the world to care again." Outside, light snow fell quietly over the forest, blanketing the world in peace. Inside, the fire glowed warm and steady. Rex opened one eye, gave a sleepy sigh, and rested his head on his paws. The puppies were fast asleep beside him, safe, loved, and alive. Mark smiled, watching them breathe in rhythm with the firelight. It had started as one cold night in a lonely cabin. But now it had become something far greater, a story of instinct, courage, and love that reached millions of hearts. Days turned into weeks, and the snow outside the cabin slowly began to melt. The storm that had once raged so fiercely was now only a memory, replaced by calm skies, the soft sound of dripping icicles, and the laughter of life returning. Inside, the cabin had changed too. It was no longer quiet and lonely. Every corner now echoed with the tiny barks and playful yips of 3 growing puppies. They tumbled across the rug, chasing tails, wrestling clumsily, and occasionally getting scolded by their watchful guardian. Rex Mark sat by the window, a mug of coffee in his hand. watching them with a smile that never seemed to fade. "You've got your hands full, huh, buddy?" he said. Rex stood near the fire, alert and proud. When one of the pups tried to climb onto the couch, Rex barked softly, a father's warning, and nudged it back to the rug. Mark laughed quietly. "Full-time dad, that's what you are now." The world hadn't forgotten their story. Letters still arrived from strangers, drawings from children, donations to animal shelters, and notes saying things like, "Rex restored my faith in good people." But inside the cabin, fame didn't matter. Only family did. One evening, as the sun dipped behind the trees, Mark sat beside the fire again. The pups were asleep in a pile of warm fur. Rex lay next to them, his chin resting across their tiny bodies. Mark looked at the peaceful scene and spoke softly. "You know, everyone keeps asking what I'll do with them. But I think we both already know, don't we?" Rex tilted his head slightly, eyes calm and understanding. "They're staying," Mark said with a smile. "All of them. This is their home now." Rex gave a small huff of approval and rested his head back down, content. Mark reached over and scratched behind his ear. "You brought them here. You saved them. And maybe, just maybe, they saved us too." Outside, the last of the snow drifted from the pine branches, landing softly on the earth below. The storm was over, not just outside, but inside them as well. Weeks passed and winter gave way to spring. The world outside the cabin bloomed with color. Grass pushed through the melting snow. Birds filled the air with song. And the forest felt alive again. Mark leaned against the porch railing, sipping his morning coffee as he watched Rex and the pups play in the open field. The little ones were faster now, strong and full of life, chasing one another through the tall grass, while Rex stood in the middle, pretending to be their fortress. The sunlight gleamed off their fur, and Mark couldn't help but laugh. "You really did it, didn't you, partner?" he said quietly. "You gave them the life their mother wanted for them." One of the pups spotted him and bounded clumsily toward the porch, tail wagging wildly. Mark bent down to scoop it up. The puppy licked his chin, and he laughed softly. "Easy there, soldier. You're just like your dad." He looked out at the field again, where Rex was now lying in the grass, letting the other two pups climb over his back. The sight filled Mark's chest with a deep, quiet peace. No sirens, no duty calls, no danger. Just sunlight, laughter, and love. The world had seen Rex as a hero, and he was, but to Mark he was something even greater: family. He sat down on the porch steps, the pup still in his arms, and watched as the evening light turned gold across the hills. The breeze carried the sound of the other puppies barking in the distance. Mark smiled and whispered, "Sometimes heroes wear badges, and sometimes they wear fur." Rex turned his head as if he'd heard him, and wagged his tail once before running after the pups again. The sun dipped lower, and the cabin glowed in the fading light, warm, peaceful, and alive. That cold night months ago hadn't just saved 3 lives, it had changed 5 forever.